Okay, here we go. Hello. So
Yeah.
thanks everyone for joining us here on track two, which is where all the cool people are hanging out today. Um, I think we have a lot to cover. Just quick introduction here. I'm Brian Thompson. I head up product marketing here at Poly, but I am joined by two far more interesting people. Good discussants here, and I think we'll start here. Just throw it to you guys. Introduce yourselves. Maybe say a little bit about your roles, your orgs, and why these good people should listen to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'll start off. My name is Juan Ocharan. I represent Pet Paradise. I'm responsible for IT solutions here at Pet Paradise. We are a pet hospitality business. Best way to introduce ourselves, right? We do boarding, grooming, day camp, and veterinary services, as well as training. Just a whole slew of things. But what I always try to clarify is we're not a traditional kennel. I'd say that we're more of and that's why it's called a resort. And if you go to our website, I think you'll see a little bit of how we try to differentiate ourselves in the market. But that's a little bit about me and Pet Paradise.
Hello, everyone. I'm Moni Panchavadi. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the global partner solution leader for travel and hospitality. So, in my role, I work with partners like PolyAI. I build solutions on AWS that our travel and hospitality customers of AWS are looking for. Been with AWS for 2 years, but I come from the industry. I work for Delta Airlines and Travelport and industry veterans like that. It's good to be here. Good to meet you both.
Awesome. So I think we should reserve a lot of time at the end to talk about how the dogs are responding to Gen AI, because I mean that's really the absolute cutting edge. But to begin, just to do a little bit of table setting, right? Automation kind of means different things to different people, or it can. If we're talking about like total automation, partial automation, all that. So let's just do a little bit of a level set. Like when you guys think about automation, I mean, what does it mean to your brand, or what does it mean to the travel and hospitality vertical for you, Moni?
Yeah, I'll kickstart this, and I'm really interested to know the pet paradise view of this, right? So when I look at travel and hospitality, this pandemic kickstarted the automation movement in our industry quite a bit. I mean, there were automation all along, but with pandemic, people were checking in online more frequently, checking out more frequently, and if they have a reason at a hotel to reach out to the front desk, they're using chat and voice and all those automation instead of going to the desk and asking for things. So we are seeing all that in the hospitality space, a lot of automation in that front. And customer service plus in airlines, when a disruption happens, I mean, your flight is canceled at your airport, you don't want to see 150 people lining in front of your desk agent. How can you automate that? So airlines are investing, even hotels and other industry customers too, investing a lot in automating all those customer interactions so they can relieve a lot of pressure from the employees. That's one main area that we are seeing automation is kicking in.
Thank you. I think for us, it was trying to find that balance between personalization and making sure that we're attending to our customers and providing them as quick of an answer and response as possible, right? Pets are family members. And ensuring that those customers that are calling us to discuss something urgently about their pet or check in is one type of call. Finding out what are our hours, can you bring a blanket with the visit? What are the vaccine requirements? Those are a different type of call. And for us, automation meant trying to discern between those two different types of use cases and quickly respond to both as efficiently as possible.
Makes sense. And I'm wondering here then, that's automation broadly, but then taking a step, because we're talking about voice here, Vox. Within that, I guess, what are the advantages of voice, do you think? Because it kind of lives in this middle ground potentially for between the totally routine typing into a chatbot versus dealing with a human being. So is that something that you sort of took into consideration for your strategy, or like, just let's explore that a little bit.
In the industry, especially travel and hospitality industry, voice is a major player because when you look at travelers, they are these experienced travelers who are week in week out going places, going customers, and we have this occasional travelers who once or twice a year go. They are not as familiar with the process. They like to talk to someone, they want to understand, they want to explain the problem. So voice is an important aspect in travel and hospitality, be it airline, be it customer, airports. So that's where the voice AI plays an important player. There's a lot of chat based and automation also happening, but due to that different type of customers that we deal with, voice is an important voice AI is very important for travel and hospitality.
Yeah, I think for us, the advantage that we were looking for was really that our customers got very used to IVRs and just already hitting 0 or pressing 4, right? And their question could have been resolved within a very short period of time, and making them starting to help them feel comfortable around. I just want to know, what time do you open? What time do you close? Can I be a little bit late? Right? These are very quick hits that that we thought voice AI would really help us resolve those customer inquiries a lot faster than a traditional IVR would have allowed us to, and it's proven to be that for sure.
So, and now we're kind of coming to the meat of it, right? And perhaps, like, Juan, you could go into a bit more detail, because you talked about pets or family. You have to maintain a certain level of, I don't want to say brand integrity, because I don't think that's even. You have to maintain the experience. You have to, like, deliver the implied promise of a pet resort, and so. Let's talk about how Gen AI in particular helps support that, or where you found that really useful.
Yeah, I'd suggest that we try to keep a balance with making sure that we all recognize that, again, pet are in many cases family members. Not even saying extensions of the family. They are the family members. They are the core family members sometimes, right? And if you're checking on your pet, you don't necessarily want to speak to. And this is what we found out very quickly. We had a call center, and you're calling. You wanted to speak to someone at the resort in many cases, and you wanted a live person, and making sure that we worked with helping the AI understand those key words that would say, okay, this one, hey, I want to tell you about a food allergy. Okay, there's no AI that's going to handle that. We need to get it over to our resort in real time. We quickly understood that we wanted to leverage our 2,000 employees that know the pets the best, and making sure that those calls were transferred over to the resorts in real time. Just to kind of give you a quick example, before we leveraged the AI, we had sometimes 20-minute wait times because we just couldn't answer all the questions, right? Especially around the holidays. What are your deposit requirements? I mean, there's so many just quick and easy questions that we found out that we could really take down that time. The difference between a live conversation that has a little bit of chit chat in it, 4 minutes, to what happens during an AI conversation, 35 seconds. And we were amazed, because it just meant that we're able to service those customers with what they needed to know at that given point in time, and then quickly service another customer, right? And any customer that needed personalized attention, we're giving it to them, right? So
curious. You had a background. I just noticed it.
Yeah, it just went away.
So that was an interesting
Yeah,
pet calling. How far along you think we are from reality of pet calling and selling AI one?
I think we're a little bit away, but you know, we tried to make it as fun, and we found an image that kind of was like, that's the chaos, right? Imagine walking into one of our lobbies, multiple people are dropping off because they're on their way for a vacation, and they are in the lobby, phones are ringing, dogs are barking, right? And it's a balancing act of personalized attention and answering that phone, right? So, but yeah, I think it was just a way to add some levity to, you know, what's actually happening at these 62 locations throughout the United States.
And I assume that there are a lot of parallels, and Moni, you can maybe speak to this. I assume there are a lot of parallels between the chaos of a pet paradise lobby and what we see in less interesting people hotels. Maybe a different amount of barking, slightly less, but really being able to kind of step in and relieve some of that pressure, answer questions quickly, and to do it in a way that, as we said, maintains that level of service. I think that it seems like that's really the theme that's emerging here of how best to use Gen AI in a customer facing role. It's not to solve every problem for everyone right out the gate. Fair to say?
Yeah, it is fair to say. I will give you a little bit of example to just emphasize how important this is for travel and hospitality. Just imagine this scenario. You are flying to Atlanta. I live in Atlanta. You are flying to Atlanta. I mean, your flight is disrupted, and I have a booking at a hotel. So you are calling the hotel, and you know that the passenger's flight is delayed, and you will not be able to check in today and check in the next day. You don't even have to engage a customer service representative to do that. Hey, we see that this happened. I already made that. Adjust your reservation. You can check in tomorrow, and we have refunded something. I mean, best case scenario. Imagine the customer experience. The travel and hospitality customers care a lot about Net Promoter Score, how customers are satisfied. Imagine the customer experience and the customer satisfaction if this can be done without going to a desk or without calling in and as one said, spending 20 minutes on the call. So that's the kind of impact that the voice AI and the generative AI can provide for the travel and hospitality customers. Again, another example, your flight is canceled. If you can text or call the airline and say, hey, I see that your Atlanta flight is canceled. We don't have another availability, but are you open to flying to Chattanooga? I see that you live in the northern side of Atlanta. Those kind of things for an agent to come in and assist is a lot of involvement, a lot of search to do. But for an AI solution to provide that, that's much easier automation that we can implement.
Moni, you reminded me about, obviously, so we're headquartered in Florida. 15 of our 62 locations are in Florida. We've had a series of hurricanes, and that absolutely drives call volume way up, right? Customers are wondering what's going to happen. Can they check in? What happens if one of our locations gets shut down? And being able to quickly get all that information out, because as soon as the AI answered, we're able to help give it instructions saying, hey, if this customer is looking for the Tampa location and the hurricane's on the way to Tampa, let's give this information right off the bat as a kind of a heads up. And it really helped, and we got feedback from our customers. It really helped them feel like, okay, these guys aren't just burying themselves in a bunker, right? They're worrying about our pets and what's going to happen, and giving that information is exactly how, during an emergency situation, we leverage that technology to really help us.
So, I mean, this all sounds pretty cool. I mean, we like to think it's cool, but out there in the wild, I think we all hear, sometimes horror stories, sometimes just well-intentioned warnings about the risks associated with Gen AI or the dangers. They're like, how do you think about safety considerations when considering deploying voice AI, or even when considering like where you should use it, what use cases, and so on?
I think what you touched on earlier is that it's a process. It's a continuous learning process, and you you can't um, go in it all trusting, right? We had a whole quality team that absolutely listened to all the calls and can worked with the deployment team to kind of refine and iterate on, oh, this is how we want it to respond, or that didn't sound quite as empathetic as we'd like it to. um, and we are from deployment till now, I would say we're a good 5 months in, and we've scaled down a little bit of the quality. Doesn't mean we don't listen to it all the time, because it's new things come up. But um, I think the risk from a perception, right, is you definitely need to work with this and think of it as any other call center human interaction, and monitor and update at all times.
I totally agree with Juan. Customers needs to be very aware of the risk and what risk they are willing to take. Right? There are examples in an airline used a chatbot, and it provided incorrect information for cancellation fee, and they had backlash on that. So, what I recommend from my experience is evaluate the risk and also consider, do you have the right data to support your AI applications? And as one said, test, test, test. I mean, you need to be really validating your results before going to production. And then even after production, constantly looking at how it is performing and adjust, as Juan correctly said. Your risk tolerance and your return, you need to constantly evaluating that and adjusting it.
Yeah. I think the other advantage to kind of this constant evaluation is, right, our goal is to kind of continue to drive that containment up, right? What else? And as you start listening to these things, you start finding, um, oh, we didn't think about that. Let's give the customer the SMS number. Let's ask them if we can text them. And then we worked with the Poly team at saying, okay, let's start sending over a link to our mobile and web, right? And I think I heard Oseen say that earlier, right? This whole, embedded solution where we basically gave them a link and said, okay, now for those customers that weren't aware that they could do this on the mobile and web, now they are, right? 65% of our traffic is mobile and web. Not quite at the level of most hospitality businesses, but again, it's because we're taking care of their children. So we're going to expect that we will never be able to get to a 85% mobile web traffic. We're going to kind of always flutter around that 65% of all traffic is mobile web.
Yeah. And one more thing I will add is, setting up the guardrails. What do you want your AI applications to address, and what you don't want them to address? With AWS, if you're using Bedrock with guardrails, you can set guardrails. Hey, don't let this application address these questions. If these questions come, route it to a different way. I mean, don't answer that. So those are the kind of guardrails that you can set to enable to make sure that the AI is not addressing questions you don't want it to address.
Yeah, and I think one of the themes I'm getting here is a lot of, like, be iterative, test and learn, be thoughtful. Develop a theory of kind of where to start and how to grow it, and even what Juan was talking about, the idea of that there are certain types of issues that kind of lend themselves naturally to, well, you should be self-serving this on the website. So actually, one thing that a voice AI can do is direct people to that and just educate them. And so this is all really interesting stuff. But I think the question that's probably going through people's minds is like, all right, I want this. This all sounds really good, but I don't know where to begin. And I think that I really would love to take some time and walk through kind of how you considered, like, how do you get started? Some lessons learned, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think for us, right, we knew we didn't want to go full blown 62 resorts, all the calls, right? We we did it a little bit over time, over probably a 3 month period before we kind of said, okay, this is now let's go ahead and maximize the amount of calls that we could get. We went from like in the beginning a 4% containment to a 10% containment. I think what you're going to start realizing is it's also going to take time for your customers to adjust, because it would be interesting. You would hear the calls where the customer, says, "Give me option 4." Wait, you're not talking to the IVR anymore. You're talking to a voice AI, and so it took a little bit for the customers to adjust to that. And we had the option of, with some guidance, right? We were told, so maybe you want to tell your customer that they're talking to an assistant, or maybe you don't, right? You have to make those decisions early on. Um, but low hanging fruit. What are your hours? What's your address, right? And then continue to build on that over time, and trying with the goal, like most of us, is to increase containment but balance customer service, right? We don't want customers to get frustrated with us. We want them to be able to identify keywords that would allow our customers to know, for the AI to know, okay, that's a keyword. Let's go ahead and send them directly to the resort, no questions asked, right? So those are some of the things that we did in order to kind of just do this a little bit at a time without feeling overwhelmed.
If I may add, what we do when I work with some of the customers, I mean, everyone is doing AI, Gen AI. So there are many things that they want to do. We try to get all those use cases and then plot that across a framework where one axis is the value it brings. The other side is how feasible it is. Then another dimension is the risk. Then we plot. Some is very high value, but it's not very feasible to do. Some other use cases will be very feasible. The value will be low. So for an example of that will be an employee-facing Gen AI applications. This is low risk, high feasibility, but the return may be not as high as a customer. So we help customer plot their use cases in this framework and then let them decide what's their risk tolerance, how much value they want. Then that view helps them decide what's the right use cases to go for.
Moni, I think you remind me of something else, right? What we didn't want to build integrations and build something that we weren't sure was going to work. So what we did quite a bit with working with PolyAI is kind of it was a scenario in which, for example, we could have built an integration to our reservation system so that if a customer says cancel, then the integration would have handled the cancel, and we would avoid talking to someone. But we wanted to understand the number of calls that came in via cancel before we build the integration, to make sure that there was value in doing that, right? The ROI associated to building an integration. No integration is inexpensive and doesn't come with additional work. So what we started doing is we started containing those calls separately. Cancel, validation, very easy calls that would require a human that could have been handled by an integration. We started sending that to an offshore team that would then handle. So we were able to parse calls, right? Some calls go to resorts, some calls go to the offshore, right? Based on the topic. And that's the beauty of the AI solution, is kind of being able to understand what are all the different reasons our customers are calling and discovering. How do we handle those more efficiently and more effectively, right? Without holding down our resort team that's actually in the lobby helping our customers also.
And it also kind of puts you in a position where you're never in a state of just set it and forget it, but it's always like learning and evolving and growing and all of that. But to that end, because I know that this comes up a lot, change management. You talked about your customers needing to adapt, but also you have internal teams. And so how do you think about getting people on board for something like that if you're just kicking off an AI project?
I'll tell you that I think one of the things that we could have done better is really introduce this to our resort team members, right? We were considering the change management for the customers, but to your point, some of our internal team members weren't as embracing of the solution or technology. We're thinking, oh, well, this is great. It just means less calls for them to deal with, right? But they as customers came in the door, we didn't prepare them enough to understand, and speak to the advantages of the solution. And I think that's what we could have done better. Is we thought we were just saving them time, but we could have invested a lot more in our resort personnel and making sure that they understood what this was like and what could possibly happen. And their feedback would have been instrumental to us making this even better.
I mean, Moni, is that something that you see? Like, no, everyone just is on board. They love it. No problem.
I totally agree with that. I mean, within AWS, I don't know if you know the culture. There's so much change happening all the time. If you listen in on reInvent, there's like 200 announcements every year. So we are used to change. It's constant learning atmosphere. But when it comes to customers, embracing that change and understanding the value of the new feature or the new product, getting that buy-in is very important for acceptance and implementation. So I totally agree with that.
Well, and that actually, I mean, there's a lesson in that too. You guys are swirling with change all the time, and Amazon is like at the forefront of setting the bar for customer experience. And so I think finding ways, as we consider deploying AI voice assistants and all that, finding ways to embrace a little bit of that chaos and a little bit of that, just in a safe and controlled way, is going to help people kind of step up their game on the experience side. I know we're coming toward the end. I think if there are any questions, we can do that. Otherwise, we can really get practical. So we've talked a little bit about use cases, but things that were sort of immediately impactful. Maybe review some of that, plus aspirational stuff. Like, where would you like to go on the AI side?
I think that the biggest thing that we realized as we transitioned is that there isn't one magic bullet, right? Call center wasn't the magic bullet. Sending all the calls to our resort personnel wasn't the magic bullet, right? We're not doing bad, right? We're like at a 72% answer rate on all our calls. We do about 90,000 calls a month, which again, I'm sure there are much larger companies here, but for a pet resort, imagine fielding 90,000 calls as dogs are checking in. And we have about, maybe 100 check-ins per day at each of our locations. So, containment, we are just at about 10%. So, I mean, I think that it's good. Would we want it better? Yeah, but I think we have to build more integrations in order to actually do that. But what you'll find is you start looking at the opportunity, right? Customers don't leave voicemails. So then, most customers will hang up and call back again. And then eventually they're like, okay, let me just ask a quick question, even if they don't want to. And then all of a sudden, the containment starts crawling up. So I think it's just it's a combination of different strategies that you're going to need to constantly evaluate in order to say what combination of things is going to help me service my customers better.
If I take 5 seconds to add to that, I see similar trend in the industry, in the industry as a whole. There is a lot of adoption in AI on customer facing, make the customer experience. But when I look at the operational side of it, how do I run the airline better? How do I run the hotel better? I don't see as much adoption of AI. So that's where I see more use cases will come in future.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, it looks like we are basically at time. And here comes Jen. Thank you.
So Jen comes in when it's time for them to kick us out. Is that how?
Yeah. We've just about overstayed our welcome, but thanks really to both of you guys. This was educational for me. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.